Nobody expected the WNBA to make a move this bold, this fast, or this dramatic. But in a moment that stunned fans, shook the basketball world, and sent shockwaves through locker rooms across the league, the WNBA unveiled a new salary offer that rewrites everything players thought they knew about their value. Overnight, without warning, the league proposed a CBA that pushed maximum player earnings past the $1 million mark for the first time in its history. People could hardly believe it. This wasn't the quiet, incremental raise that had been discussed for years. This wasn't the small bump or the predictable annual increase that players were used to hearing about. This felt like something else entirely. An act of urgency, of pressure, of fear. A league responding to forces it could no longer ignore. For years, players fought to be heard, calling for fair pay, better treatment, and real investment. For years, fans debated whether the league would ever take a dramatic leap. And for years, the response was the same. Small improvements, cautious updates, promises pushed into the future. But suddenly everything changed, and it changed with lightning speed. The WNBA's newest proposal offered more than just hope. It offered life-changing money. The minimum salary jumped past $200,000, something veterans said they never thought they would see within their careers. And at the top, the new max salary surged past $1 million, a number that would have sounded unbelievable just months earlier. It was the kind of move people once assumed would take a decade of growth to achieve. Yet now, here it was in black and white, arriving at a moment when the league looked anything but stable. Behind the scenes, WNBA players weren't surprised this proposal showed up now. They already knew what the numbers had to be. They had been offered them elsewhere. Project B, the new startup league shaking the entire women's basketball landscape, had already approached them with salaries that dwarfed anything the WNBA was prepared to offer. While the WNBA was celebrating its new $1 million max, Project B calmly announced a minimum salary of $2 million. Not just for MVP candidates. Not just for superstars. A minimum. Every player who signed with Project B earned more than double what the WNBA's highest offer could match. And for athletes who had spent years struggling for respect, the result was electric. Players whispered behind the scenes as the offers rolled in. Alyssa Thomas agreed to a deal. Jonquil Jones accepted hers. Nneka Ogwumike followed. Jewel Lloyd joined soon after. In the span of a few weeks, some of the league's biggest names made a decision that changed everything. They didn't threaten the WNBA. They didn't negotiate in public. They simply chose the league that valued them more, and that's when everything shifted. The WNBA wasn't planning a massive salary overhaul. It was forced into one. It wasn't preparing for a long-term restructuring. It was reacting to a crisis unfolding right in front of it. And the moment those offers became public, the league realized the truth everyone else already saw. Loyalty is hard to maintain when someone else is willing to pay you what you're really worth. Players didn't have to speculate about Project B's offers. They had them in writing. They had contracts, dates, and numbers that made the WNBA look outdated overnight. And once a handful of stars crossed that line, the league understood just how vulnerable it had become. That vulnerability pushed the WNBA to its breaking point. Negotiations with the players' union, already tense and emotional, became even more explosive. Both sides traded public statements and frustration spilled into interviews. The league insisted it needed time to build sustainable models. Players insisted time was the one thing the WNBA no longer had. Each day that passed without a solution felt like another opening for Project B to step in and scoop up more talent. As the original October 31st CBA deadline crept closer, urgency turned into panic. The WNBA and the Players Association agreed to a 30-day extension, but that extension didn't calm the storm. It heightened it. Suddenly, owners, league executives, and player representatives all found themselves staring at a calendar that had become a countdown to potential disaster. If the WNBA missed its window, Project B would arrive with millions of dollars in guaranteed salaries and an open runway for recruitment. The possibility of stars walking away wasn't just hypothetical anymore, it was already happening. Complicating the moment even further was the league's highly publicized expansion to Toronto and Portland. Fans celebrated the news. New cities, new teams, and new opportunities symbolized growth. But behind closed doors, expansion had come to a dead stop. The league couldn't finalize expansion rules, couldn't prepare for the expansion draft, and couldn't give either franchise a path to building a roster. Everything hinged on the new CBA, and without it, the future of both expansion teams sat frozen in place. Owners weren't thrilled. They had already invested in facilities, marketing, branding, and community partnerships. Yet they had no answers. The enthusiasm that surrounded those new teams was suddenly overshadowed by doubt and unanswered questions. Meanwhile, players saw something the league didn't want to admit out loud. Their power had never been stronger. The WNBA could promise growth. It could highlight ratings spikes. It could celebrate sold-out arenas. But none of it changed the fact that the league was relying heavily, almost dangerously, on a single player to carry the momentum. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a rookie sensation. She was the face of the sport. Her arrival brought unprecedented national attention, sponsorship money, ticket demand, and broadcast ratings. For the first time in league history, one player could shift not just the narrative, but the economics. And the league knew it. When Clark missed games earlier in the season, something became very clear very fast. The numbers dipped. Engagement wavered. Fans clung to updates about her return, tuning in only because they believed she would be back soon. The entire league held its breath, quietly acknowledging what nobody wanted to say. If Clark missed significant time, the financial impact could be devastating. She wasn't just a star player. She was the league's lifeline. That kind of dependency creates a fragile system, and players recognized it instantly. If the WNBA needed one superstar to stay healthy just to maintain momentum, how could it possibly sustain a long-term salary structure that paid its stars over $1 million? The questions piled up faster than the league could answer them. Even players who celebrated the salary jump couldn't ignore the deeper issues. Many said it felt suspicious that the WNBA found this money only after Project B made its presence known. Others wondered whether the new salaries were sustainable or if the league was simply trying to buy time. And underneath all of that sat a quieter fear. A fear that the salary cap, still a major constraint, would allow only the top players to see real benefits while everyone else remained stuck in the same old system. A few stars might cross the $1 million line, but what about the rest of the league? What about the role players? What about the rookies fighting for their place? What about the veterans who weren't household names but were still the backbone of their franchises? Those questions grew louder as fans joined the conversation. Some argued the WNBA needed to pay its players $10 million or more. Others pushed back, pointing out that the league was still fighting to secure stable revenue and consistent viewership. The debate exposed a tension that has always existed around women's basketball: ambition versus resources, growth versus sustainability, hope versus reality. But this time, the stakes were higher because the WNBA wasn't the only league in the picture anymore. For the first time, players had a viable alternative that could match their value and spare their bodies from the exhausting year-round grind that defined women's basketball for decades. Project B wasn't just offering big money. It was offering time, flexibility, rest, freedom. A player could earn $2 million between November and April and then decide whether she wanted to return to the WNBA, rest, pursue other opportunities, or simply protect her long-term health. That possibility changed everything. Suddenly, players weren't locked into year-round commitments. They weren't stretching their bodies to the breaking point just to make ends meet. They had leverage, real leverage, and that leverage became the driving force behind every conversation about the new CBA. Privately, agents warned the WNBA that players might choose to skip the season entirely, especially if travel improvements, revenue sharing, and roster expansion weren't part of the final deal. And the league took those warnings seriously. Losing a few stars temporarily might not destroy the league, but losing too many at once could shatter its momentum, damage its financial health, and weaken the very foundation it had spent decades trying to build. The WNBA could no longer assume loyalty. It had to earn it. And earning it required more than $1 million salary ceiling. As the salary proposal dominated the headlines, a deeper truth came into focus. The WNBA's financial growth was real, but still fragile. Its future was promising, but still uncertain. And its relationship with the players who built the league was more complicated than ever. The raise represented progress, but it also exposed the league's vulnerabilities. Expansion was exciting, but expansion without a stable CBA was risky. Higher salaries were meaningful, but they didn't address structural issues that players had endured far too long. And behind it all, the pressure from Project B kept growing, reshaping every decision the league made. This moment, for all its excitement and uncertainty, marks a turning point for women's basketball. The WNBA knows the spotlight is on. The players know the power is in their hands. The fans know a battle for the future of the sport is already underway. And as Project B continues recruiting, the WNBA faces a difficult question. One that will define the next decade of basketball. Can the league evolve fast enough to keep its stars? Or is this salary jump only the first of many desperate moves to come? In the end, the story of this new CBA proposal isn't just about numbers. It's about pressure. It's about competition. It's about a league fighting to protect its identity while a new rival threatens to rewrite the rules entirely. The WNBA made a massive offer, one that shocked fans and stunned players, but the battle for the future of women's basketball is far from over. This is only the beginning, and the decisions players make next could reshape the entire landscape in ways no one expected.